"I'm up," Ellie whispered, her knees trembling beneath her as she stood on her own for the first time in nearly a year. Around her, Pinecrest Park fell into stunned silence, parents frozen mid-step, children gasping, Daniel choking back tears as he watched his daughter take one shaky step, then another. And standing just behind her, calm and steady, was a 10-year-old boy in a threadbare coat whispering, "You've been doing it all along." It was the kind of cold that got into your bones. Not snow on the ground cold, but the sharp, brittle kind that made the sidewalks hard beneath your shoes and left your breath lingering in the air like fog. Outside Hopeway Children's Hospital in Richmond, Virginia, people rushed in and out, wrapped in scarves and fleece, clutching coffee cups like lifelines. Most walked fast, heads down each of them, carrying something invisible but heavy. But one boy wasn't moving. He sat quietly on the top step near the hospital entrance, cross-legged on a flattened shipping box. His coat was 2 sizes too big, clearly hand-sewn in places, and his sneakers looked like they'd come apart if not for the twine wrapped around the soles. He wasn't shivering. He just sat there drawing, slow and focused, flipping pages in a battered sketchbook covered in tape and fingerprints. His name was Micah Jameson. He was 10 years old. Most people didn't notice him. That was the way it had always been, and he didn't seem to mind. He didn't ask for help, didn't beg or shout. He just watched people and drew them sometimes, hunched over in pain, sometimes holding the hand of a child, sometimes smiling through exhaustion. And every Saturday, he was there like clockwork on the hospital steps just before sunrise. The hospital staff had tried to ask questions, once tried to move him along, but he didn't get in the way. He was polite, quiet. So eventually, they just let him be. This morning, though, Micah's eyes followed one person in particular. A man late 40s maybe, with a weary face and a leather messenger bag slung over one shoulder. His coat was designer, his beard neatly trimmed, but his posture sagged like a building too long without repair. His name was Daniel Harper, and he was carrying his 7-year-old daughter in his arms like something precious that might break. Ellie. Her name was Ellie. She was bundled in a purple coat with fox ears on the hood, her face pale curls tucked into a knit hat. Her legs didn't move. Hadn't moved for months since the virus. Daniel had tried everything: specialists, neurologists, physical therapy, promising clinical trials in other states. Every option came with more tests, more scans, more waiting. And all the while, Ellie just got quieter. That morning, as Daniel passed the hospital doors, Micah stood up. "Sir," he said softly. Daniel didn't stop. "Sir," the boy repeated a little louder. "I think I can help your daughter walk again." Daniel halted, startled. He turned, clutching Ellie tighter. "Excuse me." Micah didn't flinch. "I said, I think I can help her." The words weren't loud. They weren't delivered with salesmanship or even hope. They were quiet, calm, like a fact. Daniel frowned. He looked the boy up and down, the patched-up coat, the string-tied shoes, the sketchbook under one arm. "That's not funny, kid. I wasn't joking." There was no sarcasm in Micah's voice, no mockery, just an odd adult stillness. "My daughter's been through a lot. We both have." "I know," Micah said gently. "I don't need to know everything. I just think I can help." Daniel shook his head and walked past him. He didn't look back. But later that day, sitting in a hospital waiting room with cold coffee and another stack of discharge papers full of phrases like low probability and long-term plan, he couldn't get the boy's voice out of his head. "I think I can help her walk again." That night he barely slept, and the next morning just before noon he drove to Pinecrest Park on a hunch. It was the kind of park nobody paid much attention to: a cracked basketball court, a few swings that creaked in the wind, and a patchy lawn too uneven for any real sport. But there under the willow tree near the center was Micah, sitting on a towel, cross-legged, his sketchbook beside him, and a small weathered gym bag at his side. Daniel stepped out of his car slowly. Ellie was quiet in the back seat, her head resting against the window. "Micah," Daniel called. The boy looked up, not surprised. He stood and brushed off his hands. "I hoped you'd come." "This better not be a waste of time," Daniel muttered, as he gently lifted Ellie from the car and wheeled her across the grass. "I understand," Micah replied. "You don't know me, but I'm not trying to trick you." "Then what are you doing?" Daniel asked. "You some kind of healer?" No, Micah said. My mom was a rehab nurse. She worked with veterans and stroke patients. I used to go with her after school. She taught me things. He opened the gym bag and pulled out its contents, a microwaved cloth rice pack still warm, a beat-up tennis ball, a small jar of cocoa butter, and a towel. I'm not a doctor, he added, but I've seen people walk again who couldn't before. My mom said the body remembers. Daniel sighed. Ellie's scared of hospitals now, terrified of machines. I don't want her traumatized more. There are no machines here, Micah said, smiling a little. Just sun, trees, and us. He knelt next to Ellie. Hi, he said. Ellie blinked at him. Hi, is it okay if I work with your legs? Just a little. Nothing will hurt. If anything feels weird, just say stop. She glanced at her dad. Daniel nodded slowly. Go ahead. Micah moved gently, wrapping the warm cloth pack over her thighs. Is that okay? It feels nice, she whispered. For the next 15 minutes, Micah didn't do much. Just soft movements, small rotations of the ankles, slight pressure behind the knees. He tapped gently on pressure points, watching Ellie's face for any reaction. She didn't say much, but she didn't look away either. Daniel sat stiffly on the edge of the bench, arms crossed. You really learned this from your mom? Yeah, Micah said. She said healing isn't about fixing something. It's about reminding it what it can still do. And where is she now? Micah paused. She passed away last spring. Daniel exhaled. So what do you do now? Just float around helping strangers? I don't think of them as strangers, Micah said. And I don't float. I walk. A lot. The session didn't produce miracles. Ellie didn't wiggle her toes or stand up. But for the first time in months, she didn't seem anxious. And when Micah asked what her favorite animal was, she actually answered sea otters. Micah smiled. Me too. After 30 minutes, he sat back. That's all for today. Muscles get tired fast. Daniel stood slowly, lifting Ellie into the wheelchair again. We'll see, he muttered. Maybe we'll come back. I'll be here, Micah said. Every Sunday, same time. As Daniel pushed the chair back toward the car, Ellie looked over her shoulder and waved. Micah waved back. Later that night after dinner, Daniel found himself lingering in the hallway outside Ellie's room. He heard her humming softly a tune he didn't recognize. And in the corner of her nightstand was something new, a page from a sketchbook, a pencil drawing of a sea otter floating on its back. Signed MJ. Daniel didn't know what would happen next. He didn't believe in miracles. But something had changed, not in Ellie's legs, not yet, but in her eyes, and somehow, in his. The next Sunday, the air was still cold, but softer somehow, as if the wind had lost some of its bite. Daniel wasn't sure what made him come back. Maybe it was the sea otter drawing Ellie had taped to her nightstand. Maybe it was the way she hummed all week, or the flicker of something in her voice that hadn't been there in months. Hope. Or maybe it was something he couldn't name, the quiet confidence of that boy in the oversized coat. Whatever it was, they returned to Pinecrest Park just before noon. Ellie was wrapped in her purple jacket again, and this time she was the one who asked, "Do you think Micah will be there?" Daniel hadn't told her they were going. She just knew, and she was right. Micah was already under the willow tree, kneeling on his towel, like a monk preparing for ritual. His sketchbook was tucked away today, and the small gym bag beside him was neatly open. When he saw them, he stood up and smiled an honest smile, not eager or performative. "Hi, Ellie," he said. "You came back." "Hi," she replied a little shyly. "I brought my otter picture." Daniel glanced at her. She hadn't mentioned that. Micah grinned. "You did cool. I've got more sketches to show you later." He gestured to the towel. "Same spot, okay?" Daniel nodded, lifting Ellie gently from the car and wheeling her over. This time he didn't stay on the bench. He crouched nearby, watching more closely as Micah went to work. The warm rice pack, the lotion, the soft rotations, everything was methodical, practiced but gentle. Micah talked to Ellie the whole time, not about therapy or her legs, but about favorite animals, cereal rankings, what colors she liked best. She answered between giggles. Daniel had forgotten what her laugh sounded like. It was short at first, like she was testing it, but by the end of the session, it came more freely. "You feel that?" Micah asked, tapping gently on the side of her knee. Ellie hesitated. "I think maybe a little." That's good, Micah said without any celebration. Even a maybe means something's talking. Daniel furrowed his brow. Talking your nerves, Micah said simply. Your brain and body are having a conversation. Sometimes it's quiet at first. You really believe all this, Daniel asked. I have to, Micah replied. Belief is the part you can't skip. Over the next few Sundays, the routine became rhythm. Noon, willow tree, stretching, talking. Ellie grew more engaged, more responsive. One day when Micah asked if she could press her heel down just a little, she did. The movement was faint, almost imperceptible. But it was there. Daniel saw it. Ellie saw it. And for the first time in a long while, Daniel felt the tightness in his chest loosen just a little. It didn't stay easy. On the fourth Sunday, Ellie arrived quiet and pale. She wouldn't look at Micah, wouldn't speak. Daniel tried coaxing her out of it, but she crossed her arms and stared at the ground. She tried moving on her own yesterday, Daniel said quietly to Micah. Nothing happened. She got frustrated, angry, spent half the day crying. Micah knelt beside Ellie without saying a word. He didn't unpack his bag, didn't lay out the towel. He just sat. It's okay to be mad, he said gently. I get mad too. Ellie glanced at him. You do? Yeah, Micah nodded. I used to cry in stairwells after the shelter closed. When my mom got sick, I used to think the world had forgotten us. Ellie didn't answer. Micah continued. But my mom used to say, healing isn't a straight road. It's a spiral. You circle back. You try again. But what if nothing ever changes, Ellie whispered. Then we try anyway, Micah said, because something inside you still wants to move. And if you give up, that part might give up too. She looked at him for a long time. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but steadier now. Okay, she said quietly. Let's try. Micah didn't smile. He just nodded once. Good. That day they worked slower than usual. Daniel joined in for the first time, awkward at first, but trying. Micah guided him where to place his hands, how to support Ellie's ankles, how to feel for tiny muscle responses. You bend the wrong way, Micah said at one point, and Daniel actually laughed. Haven't stretched since college. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even pretty, but halfway through, when Micah tapped Ellie's shin and asked, can you move your foot, she did. It wasn't a toe twitch. It was her whole foot. A slow, deliberate slide forward on the towel. Daniel froze. Wait, do that again, he said, breath caught. Ellie tried. It moved again, just barely. You saw that, she asked, eyes wide. I saw it, Daniel said. Micah, did you? But Micah didn't respond with awe or excitement. He just gave a quiet nod. She's remembering. That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about it. About the way Micah never took credit. About how he never pushed or promised, just showed up again and again. And about how Ellie, who used to cry at the sight of her wheelchair, now asked to go to the park every weekend. The following Sunday, as Micah was packing up, Daniel hesitated. Hey, he said, lowering his voice. Where do you go after this? Micah looked up a little surprised. Around, he said. Sometimes shelters. Sometimes nowhere. Daniel scratched the back of his neck. You ever think about staying with us for a while? Micah blinked. You serious? I've got a guest room. You wouldn't be in the way. Micah looked down. You sure your neighbors wouldn't mind a kid like me? Daniel gave a half laugh. After what you've done for my daughter, they better keep their mouths shut. Micah didn't answer right away. But the next morning, just after sunrise, Daniel opened the front door to find the boy standing there, coat zipped to his chin, a rolled blanket under one arm, a single backpack slung over one shoulder. Right on time, Daniel said, holding the door open. Ellie came running, yes, running with her walker. Micah, she shouted. You came. Hey, superstar. Micah smiled, and for the first time since her diagnosis, their house didn't feel like a place of grief. It felt like a place where things could begin again. In the days that followed, Micah never missed a morning stretch with Ellie. Daniel got him a clean bed, a desk, and even a new pair of shoes. But Micah still kept the old ones too, the ones tied with string. He called them his reminder boots. One evening while Daniel was doing dishes, he turned and asked, You ever think about going back to school? Micah was sketching at the table. Sometimes, he said. You should, Daniel said. You're smart. You've got a gift. Micah paused. Maybe now I can. They didn't say more that night. They didn't need to, but something had shifted deep and permanent. A house once filled with silence now echoed with footsteps, laughter, scribbles, and healing. And it all started with a boy in a mended coat who sat on hospital steps and simply believed. The following Sunday, just before noon, the front door creaked open and Micah stepped onto the porch of the Harper home. His old coat zipped to his chin and that familiar gym bag slung over his shoulder. It was the 9th morning in a row he'd spent under that roof, and yet he still moved like a guest, quiet, respectful, not wanting to disturb the rhythm of a house that had, until recently, forgotten what joy sounded like. But this morning felt different. Not just because the sky was brighter or the air a little warmer, but because of the way Ellie had woken up. Earlier that morning, she had whispered to Micah at the breakfast table, "Do you think today's the day?" He hadn't answered right away. He just looked at her with that same calm steadiness and said, "I think your legs are listening more now." Daniel, standing by the sink with a cup of coffee in his hand, hadn't said anything either. But he watched his daughter more than usual, like he was memorizing the way she smiled. By the time they reached Pinecrest Park, the willow tree wasn't alone anymore. There were families there, a couple of folding chairs, a blanket spread near the roots. Daniel slowed the car and frowned. "What's all this?" Ellie leaned forward in her seat, peering out the window. "That's Sam," she said, pointing at a boy leaning on a walker near the swing set. "I know him from the hospital." Micah didn't look surprised. Word gets around. When they stepped out, a woman with short red curls approached them, a dog leash looped around her wrist. "Hi," she said with a hesitant smile. "Sorry to bother you. I'm Elise. I'm a nurse at Hopeway. I saw your daughter here last week." I couldn't believe it. She was moving her legs. Daniel nodded cautiously. "Yes, she's been working with Micah here." Elise glanced at the boy. "You're the one who used to sit outside the east entrance with the sketchbook." "That's me," Micah replied softly. She exhaled, almost a laugh. "We always wondered what you were doing out there." "Waiting," he said. "Watching, learning." Elise looked over her shoulder at the other families. "Some of these folks came after I told them. I hope that's okay." "I didn't mean to crowd your space." Micah shook his head. "It's not my space. It's for whoever needs it." They set up as usual, Micah unfolding the towel with deliberate care, Ellie easing into her seat on the grass, Daniel kneeling beside her like he always did now, sleeves rolled up ready. But before they could begin, another pair approached. A father with a girl no older than 4, her right leg stiff in a brace. He looked nervous, clutching a reusable grocery bag and a bottle of water. We heard there's a kid here helping people move again." Micah stood brushing his palms together. "That's not exactly how I'd put it," he said. "But yes, I can try." Daniel looked over at him. "You sure?" Micah nodded. They waited. "We can share the time." And so for the first time, Micah divided the hour half, with Ellie half, with the new girl named Maya. He moved between them with calm focus, showing Maya's dad how to use warm rice packs, how to rotate a stiff ankle with just enough pressure. Meanwhile, Ellie sat with Daniel, guiding him through stretches they already knew. "He's showing someone else the toe tap," she whispered with a grin. "That used to be just ours," you jealous, Daniel teased. "A little," she said, laughing. But she watched Micah work, and in her eyes there was no resentment, only pride. That afternoon, after the families began packing up and folding chairs were stowed, Daniel walked beside Micah as they returned to the car. "You ever think this would happen?" Daniel asked. "All these people coming to a park just because of you. I didn't do anything magical," Micah said. "You showed up," Daniel replied. "That's more than most." Over the next 2 weeks, the crowd grew. More kids, more parents. A grandmother who drove 3 hours from Roanoke after reading a story on the local paper's website. A therapist from a nearby clinic who offered to donate equipment. Someone from a physical rehab center who left a card with Micah's name already written on it. But Micah didn't change. He still brought the same gym bag, still wore the mended coat even as the weather warmed, still started every session with Ellie before anyone else. "She's the reason I'm here," he said once when a reporter asked him why he focused on her first. "She believed me when no one else did." The news story ran the following Sunday. A short piece titled, "10-Year-Old Healer Brings Hope to Local Families," appeared in the Richmond Observer. They didn't use Micah's full name, he asked them not to. But by the next weekend, 15 families came to the park. A local pastor brought folding chairs and a table of bagels and orange juice. A nearby school sent a PE teacher with yoga mats. Someone made laminated instruction cards of Micah's methods and called them the Jameson sequence. Micah blushed when he saw that. I'm not sure about that name, he mumbled, but he didn't protest too hard. That morning, something else changed. As Ellie stretched, Micah asked, "Want to try standing today?" Her breath caught. "Really, we won't force anything," he said. "We'll just support you. The rest is up to your legs." Daniel looked nervous. "Is she ready?" Micah nodded. "You both are." Ellie steadied herself on her walker. Daniel stood behind her. Micah knelt in front, adjusting her knees, positioning her feet just so. Then softly he said, "On 3. 1. Her fingers gripped the walker handles. 2. Daniel braced gently behind her. 3. She pushed. Her legs trembled. Her arms shook. But slowly, inch by inch, she rose. First just a shift of weight, then a lift of her knees. And then there she was. Ellie Harper. Standing. The park went silent. A mother gasped. Someone clapped a hand over their mouth. Even Micah didn't move. Ellie's eyes widened. "I'm up," she whispered. Daniel was frozen. "You're up," he echoed. "You're really up." Micah stepped back, hands still raised but not touching. "She's doing it," he said quietly. "She's been doing it." She took a step, a slow, dragging, uncertain step. Then another, then a third. Before she collapsed into Daniel's arms, both of them laughing, crying, holding on to something neither had dared to hope for again. That night the Harper home felt full, not loud, just full. Full of warmth, full of purpose. Ellie retold the moment to her aunt over speakerphone. Micah sat at the kitchen table sketching what he remembered her standing beneath the willow tree, arms wide, smile unshakable. Daniel watched them both from the kitchen counter and finally said what had been sitting in his chest for weeks. "You gave us back something we thought we'd never feel again." Micah didn't look up. "I didn't give it back," he said softly. "You found it." "No," Daniel said. "You showed us where to look. There are boys in the world with nothing, no home, no status, no safety net. But some of them carry more power than degrees or titles or wealth. They carry presence, persistence, heart. And when one of them chooses to show up again and again, he can become the heartbeat of something far bigger than himself." At Pinecrest Park under the willow tree, a revolution didn't start with a headline or a donation. It started with a sketchbook, a warm towel, and a boy in a coat too big for his shoulders, teaching a city that hope doesn't shout. It kneels, it listens, and then it rises. Sometimes the greatest healers don't wear white coats or carry prestigious titles. Sometimes they come wrapped in hand-stitched jackets and walk in shoes held together with string. Micah Jameson didn't have a degree, a clinic, or a platform. What he had was patience, heart, and a deep, quiet understanding of what it means to show up when someone else is hurting. The story you just heard isn't just about a little girl learning to walk again. It's about something all of us need: the power of being seen, of being believed in, even when we feel broken. Ellie's healing didn't start in a hospital or from a miracle pill. It began in a city park under a willow tree because one boy noticed her pain and chose to walk beside her. The lesson is simple but powerful. You don't need wealth or fame to change a life. You just need to care enough to stay. Healing takes time. Progress isn't always visible, but consistency, showing up with love, with effort, with hope, can open doors no doctor ever could. We live in a world that often looks past those who appear powerless. But Micah teaches us that true power is found in compassion, in the courage to keep helping, even when no one asks you to, and in the belief that no matter how long something's been broken, it can still be rebuilt. One movement at a time, one voice of encouragement at a time. And to the Ellies out there, those feeling forgotten, discouraged, or stuck, know this: you matter, you're not alone, and your story is still being written. Keep showing up for yourself. Keep trying, even when progress feels small, because someone somewhere believes in you, even if you haven't met them yet. Here at US Justice Story, we believe in sharing stories that remind us of the good still left in the world. Stories where kindness wins, where quiet courage makes the loudest impact, where justice doesn't always wear a uniform, but sometimes it shows up in the form of a 10-year-old boy with a rice pack and a smile. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for believing with us. If this story touched your heart, we hope you'll share it. Not just to spread the message, but to remind others, especially those who are struggling, that there is still good in this world. Still grace, still hope. And to Micah and to every quiet soul like him, we see you, and we thank you.